Regular viewers will know that I am a big fan of a Tiger Moth, so it may surprise you to learn that this kit actually took me nearly 12 months to build. It is, of course, the Airfix 1/48 scale Tiger Moth, and why did it take so long? Well, that's what we're going to look at in this video. There is already an unboxing video that was released a very long time ago, which I will try and link if you haven't seen it already. But this video will focus on the building and a little bit of a chat as to why sometimes a model can just hang around for a long time. The tool date for this one is 2019. This was the original release of this kit. There is a newer version out there, so the price of $24.99 is taken from the current, as in 2025, range. It's got 91 parts and comes with 2 decal schemes, neither of which I'm going to use. I can't remember what I actually paid for it. This was purchased from Moz 6510 Models on an auction some time ago, back in 2023 or thereabouts. So, construction, of course, begins with the interior. This footage then is from about, I think it's the end of January 2024, where this build begins. I do actually have another one of these to build, so looking back at the footage of what I did more than a year ago is kind of inspiring me to start that one. Probably won't be featured on the channel, though, because, well, it was going to be more or less the same. Anyway, the cockpit detail is fairly good. It's not massively in-depth. There are a few errors, I believe. So I've got a rather helpful book about Tiger Moths. Well, I mean, there's one particularly helpful book. I've got several books which feature Tiger Moths. And it does show a few differences, so I'm not entirely sure where they got some of the positioning details from. But of course, Tiger Moths, there's been lots of them, lots of variations. And ultimately, I don't think it really matters. Even in this scale, you can't really complain about the slight positioning of a few things. You can get some detail sets for the interior, and I may do that on another one, but this one is of course being built straight out of the box. And I'm using the fuselage half here just to line up the seats to make sure that they set in the correct place, as I don't want those to be at a funny angle. The cockpit interior is being brush painted with this Attacker interior grey-green. This colour is standard for RAF aircraft of the time, but of course I'm not doing an RAF one. There was no painting instructions for the interior of the aircraft included with the decal set that I used, so it's really a case of best guess. I couldn't find any specific mention as to whether the Swedish Tiger Moths were to standard RAF specifications or not. If they were civilian, then they may have been different. I don't know. Another issue you've got is there are quite a few Tiger Moths still around that have had very different lives, so some of them are not genuine Swedish military ones, but they fly in Swedish military colours. They appear to have grey-green interiors, but I don't know about an original. If you do, let me know, please. I'd be interested to see that, but I couldn't find specific wording as to what they would have been like inside, so I have assumed that they would be standard RAF colour scheme. This Tamiya Silver is just picking out a few of the details using a preserved example as a guide. There's a very detailed walk around in the book that I was using, which confirms that Airfix are pretty much spot on with their painting guides. The same silver was then just dry brushed on the components just to make it look a little bit worn. Even in this scale, there's not much you can actually see inside other than the instrument panels, which we'll get to later. So just a little bit of texture is all that is really needed before the entire thing is then given a wash in a slightly watered down Citadel contrast paint, which I tend to use for all of my interior, well, pretty much all of my wash needs, actually. It's a very dirty grey colour, and it's better than using something like black. It's better than using brown, in my opinion. I really like this. It's just this deep grey contrast paint. Helps tone it down nicely, and the excess can be removed just with a cotton bud. The instrument panels have these separate dial decals included. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? So the instrument panels were painted black, they were given a quick slathering of gloss, and the instrument decals were then carefully put in the right places. I think the result is very good. You will see this. There's also a little navigation compass, which is on both of the instrument panels as well. That was picked out in silver. It is visible from most viewing distances, so I think it is worth taking care to just get those dials looking good at this stage. as it is definitely the most visible part of the interior, which can now be put together, or at least I was trial fitting it. It wasn't quite glued. I didn't include footage of me both trial fitting and gluing. It's a bit tedious, but you can see here just making sure that they all line up. You can see what is and isn't visible. So of course you've got the back of the front seat. I was going to say the pilot seat, but of course the pilot could be either. You generally fly it from the back, but you could fly it from the front. It's a trainer. Anyway, the back of the front seat is hidden behind the instrument panel, so you don't need to worry about painting that. And the fuselage halves then go together, and it's at this stage where you can see how much of the interior is visible, the answer being basically instrument panels and those seats. The kit gives an option for an open engine cowling, so it does have a reasonably well detailed engine block. This comprises of a separate exhaust run on the starboard side, and then the bracing frame or support frame or the whatever. It is a little bit fiddly gluing it in at this stage. It does have holes that you can line this all up with, but it was still just a little bit fiddly trying to make sure that it was all good. You could argue that it would be better to paint the engine before sticking the frame on if you are intending on displaying it open. I wasn't sure at this stage whether I was going to have it open or not, and it's partly because of the fiddly nature of trying to paint the engine once you put all the pieces together. That actually helped sway me to do it closed, because it was just, well, easier. Excuse the brain fart here, where I just couldn't work out that the door should go over the the moulding rather than underneath it, but I worked it out in the end, and we can move on to the undercarriage. Typical of an aircraft of this type and age, it's a little bit fiddly. We've got the main sort of cross beams there, and then it's got supporting ones, and you can see that it just didn't stick first time and was falling off. You don't want to just glue a piece in, wait for it to dry, and then glue the support struts. You kind of have to do them all at the same time, otherwise they're just probably not going to be in alignment. Wing struts, however, are very cleverly designed by Airfix so that you can just use the centre struts from the fuselage to the fuel tank. I chose to glue them in at this stage, and you saw me just there testing that the wing would fit and would be straight, because it's important to get that right, and I'm not gluing the wing on until basically the end. We are now moving on to painting and the start of the real issues. Now you can see this medium yellow, just some Vallejo Model Air, and I'm spraying that on the top wing, which has had the struts glued on this way. It's just a lot easier. You got both struts in one piece, and I'm spraying over a grey primer. Now, why did I use a grey primer? Well, quite simply, my white ran out, but it ran out after I'd sprayed, I think, the bottom of the top wing. I realised, no, it's just spluttering too much. There's nothing really left in there. I'm going to have to either buy some new primer or use a different colour, and I was impatient, and I had a grey primer to hand. So this was Tamiya fine grey primer sprayed over the rest of the aircraft, and the yellow coverage is pretty bad. In addition to taking an incredibly long time to dry, it needed multiple coats, and it never really pops. It's just not yellow enough. It's a non-yellowy yellow when spraying it over grey. The bit which was sprayed over white, not too bad. The rest of it, not a big fan. And this is one of the reasons why the kit ended up sitting around for a long time whilst I worked out what to do. In the end, I decided to just mask it off and start work on the red. My choice of red being this from Model Air RLM 23 Rot, which for some reason I didn't film me painting. So we have a little jump as we go on to the decals, which is this extra decal set. I posted a poll as to which scheme you wanted me to build, and the winner was the Swedish one, which is of course one of the more complicated ones, because firstly, red is a bit of a difficult colour, secondly, yellow is a bit of a difficult colour, thirdly, masking the divide between the two was a bit tricky, especially if you're like me and you don't like masking. So that was actually one of the reasons why the aircraft sat around. This is now March 2024 that I was adding these decals. Yes, the aircraft has been glossed as well, probably just Vallejo model varnish, whatever it's called, thinned down. The decal quality is generally very good. However, we do have a problem here with the tail decals. You can see it's yellow and blue, but the yellow isn't quite the same shade of yellow because, well, what are the chances of me managing to get it? And I really don't like it. So I peeled it off. It wasn't working very well. I tried cutting just the blue to at least get the yellow consistent, but it's still not quite the right shape, and I felt much happier at the idea of just painting it. So out comes the Hataka True Blue. This is from an interwar US Navy set, if I remember correctly, and that is just painted. So we masked off the blue area, masked off the yellow area, and just brush painting the blue. This obviously therefore looks better. It hugs the shape of the aircraft because it's not a decal. I do just want to mention, I don't think it's the decal's fault, or Extra Decal's fault. The set predates this kit, so it was probably designed for a more antiquated Tiger Moth. We're nearing completion. We've got the clear parts. There are just 2 of them. Even in 48, they're a bit thick because they're very, very thin on a real Tiger Moth, but there's only so much you can expect, and they are clear. They are still good quality, but they are just a little bit thick. Now, to make life easier, I've kept them on the sprue and am painting the silver frames like that. You can, of course, glue them on first and then paint it. However, because the aircraft is yellow and the yellow is incredibly thin and lacks any real opacity, I didn't want to risk any bleed of the silver going onto the yellow. So this, for me, was the safer option. And as is pretty standard with me making biplanes, you can see that I've left the top wing off until this stage. It is only now that the wing can be lowered on. Of course, I've already lined it up, as you saw. I've already made sure that the struts go, and Airfix have made this incredibly easy to do. I've had some real wrestling matches with biplanes trying to get them to sit properly, but Airfix have nailed how to do biplanes, in my opinion. We're now moving on to a bit of an apology. As you can see, I added rigging. You know what I didn't do? Film any of it. And this is the biggest jump in time for making this aircraft. By the end of March 2024, it was mostly together, and it just sat there, lingering, until I eventually, in December 2024, got off my backside and added the rigging. It was just elastic stuff. I absolutely hate rigging, but I love biplanes. Therefore, you kind of, have to get used to it, I guess, especially in this scale. 72nd, I don't care. 48th, definitely. I'm going to talk about the paint finish because you saw some blemishes there, but first, one tiny little bugbear that I've had. I say tiny bugbear, it drives me mad. There's no fuel line included in the kit. There's no fuel line on the 72nd one, there's none on this one, and spoilers, I've got the ICM 32nd one to make, and there's no fuel line there. The fuel should be running to the engine by gravity from the fuel tank, which is the centre of the top wing, to the engine, which is, where the engine is. And obviously it can't, so how's it going to fly? How's the engine going to turn? So here's just a little bit of bent metal, I believe it was a bit of guitar string, just angled to look vaguely like a fuel pipe, and is then glued in. And it's at this stage where I finally decided, I'm going to cover the engine up, and so glued in that final cover, which had already had the decal applied separately, and you can also see it's a slightly different shade of red, but never mind, it happens to real aircraft. Had I done a better job on the engine, I probably would have left the cover open, but hey, I've got another one, so it doesn't matter. The propeller blades are painted badly. I'm just going to admit that straight away. They're way too dark, should be much, much lighter, but I overdid it. Just added an increasing number of dark brown coats over the original cream base. I also don't know if this type of propeller blade is correct. There's a few, I think 3 that come with the kit, and the decal set just doesn't mention what would be correct. Basing it on images is difficult as well because, as mentioned earlier, there are some airworthy examples in this scheme that were clearly not original Swedish ones. Either way, that is that. Tiger Moth, done. I said I would address the paint, and I have to. There are blemishes, especially on the undersurface of the top wing and around the yellow struts. Because the yellow was so thin, I ended up using a different yellow, so it doesn't quite match, and the opacity is much better on the Tamiya yellow that I used to patch things up. So it, up close, doesn't look fantastic, if I'm honest. I do like the divide between the red and the yellow. I think I managed to mask that quite well. It wasn't easy, and obviously helped that I kept the top wing off, and I am very annoyed that I didn't film any of the rigging. I started it just one evening and just kind of got carried away. I was expecting to do maybe one wing, and then I thought, well, if I can do it without it looking terrible, I'll then film the next wing and we'll use that footage, and just got carried away, and before you know it, it was done and realised, oh dear. I will have another biplane on the channel very soon, and I have made sure that I have filmed that. So please stay tuned, and you will see me rigging. So if you want to know how I did this, you're going to find out in a future video. The eagle-eyed amongst you may also notice that the national insignia on the starboard fuselage side is a little bit torn. There is a small bit of white missing near one of the Swedish crown. The decal quality is generally very good, as I have said. They are, however, quite thin. This does have the advantage of fitting the surface detail very nicely. Not that there's too much surface detail on this kit because, well, it was just a gentle fabric texture. So whilst it's good, it does mean that they are susceptible to ripping if they're man-handled too much, and that one just wouldn't go on very well. It kept on moving to a sort of a wonky angle. When I went to adjust it, a small amount teared. I have subsequently just dabbed a little bit of white paint in there and completely covered it up. However, I decided to do that after filming this because I wanted to show a more authentic version of what I made, and I know that I would have forgotten to mention it, especially given that it happened in, March 2024, and I'm recording this in May 2025, so it's likely that I would have forgotten that it had been done, and I'd rather show you, yes, you might come across a problem if you're using decals like this. Thankfully, it's not too big an issue, and it is mostly user error rather than extra decal quality or anything like that. And finally, I will look at wrapping this up because I'm well aware that I've just been talking at you for over 15 minutes, so thanks for lasting this long. I could talk for days about Tiger Moths, and probably will if you ever meet me at an air show or something. But anyway, the kit itself is the one thing which I haven't mentioned too much. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a really good kit. It assembles very well. It's a simple biplane. If you've never made a biplane before, this is one that I would recommend, not just because I want more Tiger Moths in the world, but because it is genuinely a really easy one to build. The way that they have made the struts, and you can just apply them as I did, the wing ones on the top wing and the centre ones on the fuselage. It's just so much easier than having separate struts. It's very, very well thought out. It is a highly recommended kit, and I'm very happy with the end result, even with the annoying paint issues that were entirely my fault. And you can certainly do a lot worse for $24.99. Obviously, you can get it for a little bit less than that, generally 10% off at a lot of retailers. So yeah, for 25 quid, I would highly recommend this. It gets the Captain VFC seal of approval. Thank you very much for watching. As I've said, there is another Tiger Moth that I will build, this exact same kit again. I will do a different version of it, a different scheme from the same decal set. Drop me a comment if you have any recommendation. I won't feature a video of me building it again, that would be pointless, but I will make sure that it does feature in some way, either a post or definitely at the end of year review that I do. And don't forget, if you're new here, to subscribe. If you've made it this far into the video, if you haven't hit subscribe yet, then, well, please do. And you can be notified of when a video goes live by hitting that notification bell as well. Like it if you like it, and dislike it if you dislike it. Although, again, if you've made it this far and you don't like me rambling at you about Tiger Moths for, nearly 20 minutes, then, well done. Just well done. Obligatory shout out to channel members. Thank you very, very much. If you want to join them, details are below. You can help contribute to more Tiger Moths. And isn't that a wonderful prospect? Goodbye, everybody.